भगवती उत्तम श्लोके. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 3, text 13. So Antariksh, Yogendra Antariksh speaks. Vayuna hrit gandhapuh salilatvahi kalpat salilam tad hitaratam yote vayo kalpate. Deprived of its quality of aroma by the wind, earth is transformed, and water deprived of its taste by that same wind is not. So as we studied yesterday at the time of this separation, after 100 years, no rain, complete drought, and sun is shining at its full brightness, and fire comes from Sankara. And then when everything is burned down, then the water, rain comes by somewhat the clouds. The whole universe is filled up with water. So then slowly, all just like we studied how they came into existence, they start going away unmanifested. It's like we studied from false ego comes intelligence, from then ether into air into fire, fire into water, water into earth at the time of creation. Now, at the time of dissolution, element earth is transformed into water because aroma is the special quality of earth. So that goes away. So earth is transformed into water. And water, the special quality is taste. So when taste is gone, and then water is transformed into wind, and then water is transformed into fire. Then the purport is mentioned. Srimad Bhagavatam gives several descriptions of the material creation. Can you all hear me? Kundan Prabhu says he cannot hear.
Prabhuji, very dim. Your voice is very dim.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Is it better?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, now it's okay.
Thank you. So let's try. So Srimad Bhagavatam gives several descriptions of the material creation by which earth is expanded from ether, fire from air, water from fire, and earth from water. Now in the reverse order, the creation is wound up. Thus earth merges back into the water from which it came, and water similarly merges into fire. It's just like in chemistry we have studied in solid, liquid, and gas. Solid, the in solid, the force between two atoms or molecules is very strong. The strength is strong. So if that force is broken, then it can become liquid, and the liquid can become gas. So text 14. Hritarupam tu tamasa vayu jyoti praliyate. Hritasparsho avakashena vayur nabhasi liyate. Kalatmana hritgunam nabh atmani liyate. Fire deprived of its form by darkness dissolves into the element air when the air loses its quality of touch by the influence of space. The air merges into that space. When space is deprived of its tangible quality by the Supreme Soul in the form of time, space merges into false ego in the mode of ignorance. So how everything is now going back. Indriyani manobuddhi sahavaikarikarnirka pravishanti ankaram swagunaraham atmani. My dear king, the material senses and intelligence merge into false ego in the mode of passion from which they arose, and the mind, along with the demigods, merge into the false ego in the mode of goodness. Then the total false ego along with all of its qualities merge into the Mahat Tattva. So all these elements which we were trying to enjoy, the senses were trying to enjoy the sense objects, they're just losing everything and merging back into Mahat Tattva. Esham Maya Bhagavata Sarga Sthiti Antakarini Trivarna Varnita Smabhi Kim Bhuya Shrotumichasi. I have now described Maya, the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This illusory potency, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is empowered by the Lord for the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the material universe. So this is Maya, and in the end, nothing. Everything just merges back into Mahat Tattva, gone. And we think these things can give us pleasure. It's all temporary. So Yogendraji is asking now, what do you wish? What more do you wish to hear? King Nimi had expressed to the Nav Yogendras his fear of the illusory potency of the Lord and had requested a detailed explanation of Maya so that he could avoid becoming a victim at her hands. Now Shri Antariksha having described the illusory potency, suggesting that the king inquire about the means to become totally free of Maya's influence. Just knowing Maya is not enough. How to get out of the influence. Now, waiting for the king to ask such a question, Sri Antariksha himself is suggesting, now that you have heard about Maya's influence, you should inquire about the process of becoming free from such influence. According to Sridhar Swami, that is the significance of Sri Antariksha's question, Kim Bhuya Shrotum Ichhasi. What more do you wish to hear? So following is a summary of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's explanation of the process of annihilation described in the previous verses. Vasudev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the presiding deity of consciousness, which becomes manifest within the Mahat Tattva. By further transformations of the Mahat Tattva, the threefold false ego appears as follows. 1. From Vaikarika, the false ego in the mode of goodness appears the 11th sense, the mind, whose presiding deity is Aniruddha. From Tejas, false ego in the mode of passion, comes intelligence, whose presiding deity is Pradyumna, and the 5 working senses, 5 knowledge-acquiring senses with their various presiding deities. From false ego in the mode of ignorance arises the subtle form of sound, and from that sound or Shabda, all the material elements gradually become manifest, beginning with ether and the sense of hearing. The presiding deity of these 3 divisions of false ego is Sankarshan. So that's explained in 3rd canto of Bhagavatam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead's external potency, Maya, causes the birth, maintenance, and destruction of the material world. She is tricolored, red, white, and black. In her red feature, the material nature is created, in white it endures, and in black it is annihilated. The Mahat Tattva arises from this Maya, and from the Mahat Tattva come the 3 varieties of false ego mentioned above. At the time of annihilation, the 5 great elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, merge into the false ego in the mode of ignorance from which they were originally generated. The 10 senses and intelligence merge into the false ego in passion. And the mind, along with the demigods, merges into false ego in the mode of goodness, which then merges into Mahat Tattva, which further takes shelter of the Prakriti or unmanifest Pradhan. So the things that we fight for, things that we crave for, it's just temporary. Everything gets unmanifest. As described above, each of the gross elements is bound up when its distinguishing quality is removed. The element then merges into the previous element. This can be understood as follows. In space or ether, there is the quality of sound. In air, there are the qualities of sound and touch. In fire, there are sound, touch, and form. In water, there are sound, touch, form, and taste. And in earth, there are sound, touch, form, taste, and aroma. Therefore, from ether down to earth, each element is distinguished by the addition of its own unique quality called guna vishesham. When that quality is removed, an element becomes non-different from its previous element and thus merges into it. For example, when the great winds, so along with Samvarta clouds, there come great winds also. They take aroma away from earth. Now, how they do that, I don't know. Maybe it's a from water into which it merges. Similarly, when water loses its rasa or taste, it contains only sound, touch, and form, thus becoming non-different from fire, which also contains those three qualities. So the wind takes away aroma to merge earth into water and takes away. Then when the universal darkness removes form from fire, fire merges into air. Space then removes the sense of touch from air, and air merges into space. The Supreme Personality of Godhead as a time element removes sound from space, and the space then merges into the false ego in the mode of ignorance from which it arose. Finally, false ego is merged into the Mahatattva, which is merged into the unmanifest Pradhan, and thus the universe is annihilated. That's it. It's so crazy that when we are in these bodies and we are running around, we're crazy about all these elements. Of course, we don't look at the elements, we just look at the form, person or the thing, and then we get so attached to it. So much attachment is there. Shri Rajovacha Yathe Tameshwarim Mayam Dustaram Kritatmabhi Tarantyanjah Sthulathiyo Maharsh Idam Uchyatam. King Nimi said, O great sage, please explain how even a foolish materialist can easily cross over the illusory energy of the Supreme Lord, which is always insurmountable for those who are not self-controlled. And this is also what Arjuna asked a question to Krishna, that why do we commit sin? Even if we don't want to, helplessly we would commit sin. Sin is what? To enjoy separately from Krishna. Basically, that is sin. To enjoy our senses. So even, although one might understand theoretically, but here it is King Nimi saying, it's always insurmountable for those who are not self-controlled. So control over mind, control over intelligence is so important. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, Sthula Dhiya indicates those who ignorantly identify themselves with the gross material body and who are therefore unable to analyze the subtle laws of nature by which the soul transmigrates in illusion. Srila Jiva Goswami comments that Sthula Dhiya also indicates so-called pious persons who execute pompous religious ceremonies for material sense gratification rather than trying to prepare themselves to go back to Godhead by engaging in the loving devotional service of the Lord. So also indicates pious person, and there are so many because they want to do karma kandi activities so that they can, so they perform some pious activities and then they get the results of those pious activities, and by which we think we can just keep on enjoying in this material world. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, King Nimi was already an advanced devotee of the Lord and therefore knew that one can cross over the illusory energy Maya by surrendering to the lotus feet of the Lord and pleasing him by pure devotional service. Therefore, King was asking the question for the benefit of those who falsely consider themselves very much learned but in fact are addicted to materialistic, fruitive activities, which increasingly entangle them in illusion. In this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has quoted from the Amar Kosh dictionary to show that Akritatmabhi indicates apurnatvam, or one whose life is empty. So actually it is empty. There is no substance to it. Outside it might look good, the fruitive life, the karmakandya life, but inside it's nothing. Every living being has an eternal relationship with the supreme living being, Krishna. One may love Krishna by thinking of him as an eternal master, one's most intimate friend, one's beloved child, or the object of one's conjugal attraction. Of course, such ecstasies should never be confused with ordinary material emotions, which are perverted reflections of spiritual rasas or relationships. In the material world, we try to relish these same relationships of servitude, friendship, parental love, and conjugal love. But the object of such feelings is a temporary material body, which is quickly devastated by the laws of nature. So same thing happens when we cremate the dead bodies. So when we cremate, just imagine the same thing as cremation of the whole universe. So the temperature of fire is so high that just burns down everything. So earth is merged into, well, here because the universe is still there, so earth element from our body merges into the earth element, and fire element goes into fire, and water, air, ether, and then the body is gone. That's it. Some ashes are left. Ashes are basically earth, and we just throw away those ashes in the river, and the whole body is gone. So temporary. These loving feelings should be directed towards the spiritual body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is a reservoir of all beauty and transcendental bliss. One who has not learned the art of directing his love to Krishna is Apurna, or one whose life is ultimately empty. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, one whose life King Nemi, a pure Vaishnava, was so kind that he asked, how can such cripple-minded person cross over Maya in the easiest way possible, since by nature they're very lazy in spiritual matters. This is the compassion of a devotee. Okay, whatever, little bit they can do fastest way, shortcut. Because studying the scriptures, doing yagyas, doing other things, it's not possible. Just give us a shortcut. Now the fourth Yogendra, Shri Prabhupada, he says, Shri Prabhupada Vacha, Karmanyaram Bhamanam Dukha Hatya Sukhaya Cha Pashyeta Paka Viparyasam Mithuni Charinam Nidam. Shri Prabhupada said, accepting the roles of male and female in human society, the conditioned souls unite in sexual relationships. Thus, they constantly make material endeavors to eliminate their unhappiness and unlimitedly increase their pleasure. But one should see that they inevitably achieve exactly the opposite result. In other words, their happiness inevitably vanishes, and as they grow older, their material discomfort increases. So we all are trying to be happy, but opposite result happens. Happiness inevitably means for sure it's going to vanish. And as they grow older, the material discomfort increases. So we all, if we are not old, we are getting old, and we are getting diseased, and body organs will stop working, or at least slow down in the process of functioning. And it's just too much material discomfort because we are so much attached to the comforts that we had earlier. Purport. Without the mercy of a pure devotee, it is exceedingly difficult to free oneself from the bodily concept of life, which is the illusory basis of sexual attraction. And to get out of this concept, it's so difficult. And it's impossible without mercy of pure devotee, without the knowledge that he gives. Nityartidena vittena durbhalen atmamrityuna grihapatyapta pashubhi ka priti sadhitash chala. Wealth is a perpetual source of distress. It is most difficult to acquire, and it is virtual death for the soul. What satisfaction does one actually gain from his wealth? Similarly, how can one gain ultimate or permanent happiness from one's so-called home, children, relatives, and domestic animals, which are all maintained by one's hard-earned money? So this is Sri Prabhupada is saying, wealth is a perpetual source of distress. It is most difficult to acquire, and it is virtual death for the soul. Very profound statement. And this is coming from Navayogendras who roam around the whole universe without even bothering to cover their bodies. Wealth is perpetual, because to earn it, it's so difficult. It's not easy to earn money. And then we get attached to it. If we have 1 lakh rupees, then the next goal is how to make it 2 lakhs, 5 lakh, 10 lakh, 20, 50 crore, 2 crore, 3 crore, 10 crore. It just goes on and on and on and on. The greed always increases. And then when one has wealth, his relatives have some expectations from him that he will give me some wealth. His friends have some expectations. Government has expectations. He has to save it from the thieves. Nowadays, we don't keep the cash at home. We put it in the bank or somewhere, money market or whatever. And then we are always in the anxiety: is the bank gonna close down, or we're gonna lose the money in the share market? It's perpetual of distress. Always gives distress. And later, we'll read about Avanti Brahman. When he lost all his wealth, all his relatives gave him up. They just had nothing to do. We have nothing to do with this guy. And then he says, then the Avanti Brahman says, I'm most happy now. And this is what wealth does. So anyway, we'll stop here, and tomorrow we'll see what more wealth can do. So we'll stop here, see anybody has any questions or comments. Of course, we need some money to maintain ourselves. That nobody's saying no to that. But when it becomes greed, we don't know. Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, you all have. Yes, Mata, Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisance. Prabhuji, so those devotees who are wealthy and they utilize their money for the service of Krishna, they are actually doing the right thing, right?
They are, but the question is, to make that kind of money, one has to work very hard. So yes, the proper process is to use everything in service of Krishna, no doubt about it. But if we are doing too much endeavor to earn that money, until we have inherited, that's a different story. But if working hard 10, 12, 14 hours every day to make money so that I can support the temple or give it to the temple, Rupa Goswami, that's why it says, Atyahara prayasasya, don't do it. So there's a catch there.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah, it is actually good. Thank you.
There is a catch. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Chalo, okay, you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai
Hare
Shri Ram.
Krishna, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Thank you.
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Jai Shri